Assassinations, coups and control. How France silenced 22 African presidents since 1963. Since 1963, over 22 African presidents have reportedly been assassinated, many of them by French intelligence, simply for daring to say no to neo-colonialism. From the jungles of Congo to the deserts of Mali, the blood of leaders who sought true independence continues to stain the soil of Africa. The shadow of French intelligence, the SDE, DGSE, and DST, France's most powerful intelligence arms, have operated like silent executioners across Africa. Ibrahim Traore, the new target. Fast forward to today, Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, a bold face of resistance, is fighting the same battle. We have proof. France is working with Benin and Ivory Coast to destabilize Burkina Faso, Traore said. Traore seized power on September 30th, 2022, from the then interim president, Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, over the latter's alleged inability to deal with the country's Islamist insurgency. Since rising to power in September 2022, Traore has faced at least 19 assassination attempts, many allegedly backed by foreign interests with clear motives. He accused France of using its military presence in Benin and Ivory Coast to stage operations targeting his government. After taking power, the Burkina Faso military broke military and bilateral agreements with France, accusing it of not only having failed in its efforts to combat terrorism, but also of wanting to destabilize the country. But Traore is not the first. From de Gaulle to President Sarkozy, de Gaulle sacrificed African independence for the benefit of France. This strategy has been decades in the making, rooted in a policy crafted by Charles de Gaulle to maintain French dominance through 1. UN manipulation via client states. 2. Unrestricted access to African resources, oil, uranium, cocoa. 3. Financing French politics through shady aid deals. 4. Acting as Africa's manager on behalf of the US. So for these 4 reasons, France has put in place a system that denies its former colonies independence. That is the reason why blood continues to flow on the African continent. In Cameroon, the UPC struggled for independence. Niobé was crushed between 1957 and 1970 in a bloodbath that left between 100,000 and 400,000 dead. In Togo, more than a quarter century of dictatorship with the complicity of France. Barely 3 years after the independence of the young Togolese Republic, it was the brutal eruption of the army into political life. On January 13, 1963, Sylvanus Olympio, the first democratically elected president, is assassinated by Sergeant Etienne Ayadima at the head of a clique of former soldiers after the Vietnam War. They carried out a coup with the support of the French officer who was supposedly responsible for the security of Olympio. They assassinated the president on January 13, 1963. Ayadima Etienne spent more than 40 years in power. His reign of terror was reminiscent of Nicolae Ceausescu, and he left a country mired in chaos and poverty. He died in 2005. His son, Faure Ayadema, replaced him, and this too was possible only with the support of France. In the Central African Republic, there was a promising statesman, Barthélemy Boganda, who died in a mysterious plane crash. Barthélemy Boganda mysteriously died on March 29, 1959, in an aerial disaster while traveling between Berberati and Bangui. Abel Goumba, Foreign Minister, Minister of State, and President of the Governing Council, is set to succeed him. David Dacko, the suspected architect of the death of Barthélemy Boganda with the help of French militia in Bangui, dismissed Abel Goumba from succession. Abel Goumba then founded an opposition party, MIDAC, Movement for Democratic Development of Central Africa. The MIDAC will only have a short duration. David Dacko dissolves the party and imprisons its leaders. The Central African Republic of David Dacko in the grip of serious financial crises, misappropriation of public funds. Instead of reacting and acting quickly, decides to hand over power to the Chief of Staff, Colonel Jean Bedel Bokassa, on the 1st of January 1966. France installs Bokassa as king and plunders the Central African Republic's resources. Bokassa eventually fell and died in misery. In the Comoros, 2 assassinated heads of state and 2 others deposed by mercenary Bob Denard. In Niger, the same day Nigerian leader Hamani Diori threatened to sell the country's uranium to other countries for a better price than France was paying, he was deposed by a military coup in which he was brutally murdered. A timeline of blood. Let's break down the devastating trail of assassinations tied to French influence. 1963. Sylvanus Olympio, Togo's first president, assassinated after refusing to fund French-backed soldiers. 1976. General Murtala Mohammed of Nigeria gunned down months after nationalizing foreign oil interests. 1987. Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary icon, eliminated for throwing out French aid. 1992. Mohamed Boudiaf, President of the Republic of Algeria. 2011. Muammar Gaddafi, President of the Republic of Libya, was assassinated, and the list goes on. France's neo-colonial network. Today, France maintains military bases in Chad, Senegal, Gabon, Ivory Coast, and Djibouti. While France denies involvement in recent destabilization, leaked documents, testimonies, and the patterns tell a different story. France controls Africa not with chains but with strings tied to every president's chair. But a new generation is rising, African resistance rising. From Mali to Burkina Faso, citizens are demanding real sovereignty. African leaders like Traore are rejecting outdated alliances, and the youth are awakening.
We want to break with these imperialist forces. It's simple. We denounce the agreements. Everything starts from there. I think the example of Chad in any case is tangible. They started by denouncing the agreements. Otherwise, if we don't denounce the agreements, just saying that the bases leave, we haven't done anything. Because the problem lies in the colonial agreements, the defenses that have been signed since independence. The most dangerous is not the one you see in the bases. The most dangerous are the military advisors. Military advisors exist in all these countries. They existed in Burkina as well until the end of 2022, until we took responsibility. And who are these military advisors? They are the ones who are supposed to implement France's policy. Here, they must work to make our armies very weak so that France can always have the argument to exist here. Under their influence, they had succeeded. Our sentinels were therefore standing guard with sticks. That's what France wants from our armies. When we reach this stage, we have no choice but to want them to come and settle. But the Burkinabe army managed to get rid of the military advisors.
As African voices grow louder, the question remains, will France step back or double down? Africa Insight will continue to uncover these deep-rooted truths, bringing you closer to the forces shaping the fate of the continent. Like, comment, and subscribe to Africa Insight Official for more uncensored African history and political analysis. Join the movement. Reclaim the narrative.